Stand up.
Surprise, it's me on a Sunday is when I'm dropping this episode of Stand Up, or really more of a conversation with my good friend Eric Segall. He is one of my best friends. He also happens, of course, be a constitutional law scholar. And so when he said, hey, it's Sunday is National Constitution Day, should we talk about how horrible it is? Basically, I'm paraphrasing, folks. I said absolutely, because I always say yes to talking to him. And so many of you love our conversations. And the great thing is, this conversation had so much more to do with than just the Constitution. As a matter of fact, we talked about drinking, because it started with my anger that I was negged at the store that had exited in my license. Don't worry, I didn't lash out at anybody. But yeah, I didn't have my license on me. Now I know some of you are aghast. Why would you go to the store? Why would you go out without your license? It's a good question. It's a fair question. I couldn't find my wallet, okay, if you must know. But you know what I did have? Apple Pay. So we started with drinking age, and he told an amazing story I don't think I've ever heard him tell before. And then we got into the Department of Justice and his work there as a lawyer, and it was fascinating, this history. And then we got on to current events and his thoughts on the whole special master, which were original and, as always, so well explained in an interesting way, because that's who Segall is. He is, of course, a professor of common law at Georgia State University, the author of a couple books. If you haven't bought them, they're so well written, easy to read. I love reading Originalism as Faith and Supreme Myths. Of course, he's got the podcast Supreme Myths, which you should listen to as well. But I think you're going to love this conversation, so I'm going to stop talking and let's give him a call.
Hello.
Hi.
Hold on one second, Pete. Hold on one second. I'm back. Hello.
I'm pissed off.
Uh-oh.
Can we start?
Sure, if that's how you want to begin. Yes.
I was at the grocery store. And
You're recording now, correct? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
And I tried to buy a 6-pack of beer, but I didn't have my license.
Mm.
And the manager said, it's the law. You have to have your license.
Mm.
And I was like, I don't think it is the law. So I went next door to the liquor store, which has many bottles and bottles and bottles and bottles of poison, vodka, whiskey, everything.
I've heard there's 99 bottles of beer on the wall. 99 bottles of beer. Sorry.
Now I really wish I didn't bring this up. And I go to the liquor store, and I know the guy there. And I go, hey, man, you've never asked me for my ID here when I've bought wine or whiskey or whatever, ever. He's like, yeah. I go, is it a law? He goes, no, it's the store. It's a store policy. But I was just wondering what you think about that law. I mean, you've seen what I look like. And
you can pass for 18. You can pass for 18.
I'm just thinking that's a bizarre. I didn't give anybody a hard time. Old Pete didn't come out. But I am going to complain to you.
Okay.
And I'm going to blame you.
Clearly my fault on all of this.
Thank you for taking
I'll tell you why. Because for much of my camp life I, of course, live in Atlanta, but I grew up in New York, went to camp in New York. I actually went to camp not that far from you, where you live, like an hour and a half north of you or something.
They had camp when you were young?
I loved my camp. Are you kidding? Yes, sleepaway camp. And during bus rides to and from camp, and during camp when we did escapades, we would sing 99 bottles of beer on the wall, 99 bottles of beer. And that's clearly what happened to you today. If you had sung that song, if you had sung that song.
Do you think that it's appropriate to have a law, or do you think that the law should be if the person purchasing alcohol looks around age 21, you can ask?
Let me answer this question the best way I know how. Your feelings are your feelings, and they're valid and they're legitimate. But having just taped a very long news segment for a local news channel here about how a federal judge is ruining America, I'm having a very hard time.
There's nothing more important than drinking age laws. I know you want to talk about, I don't know, future of America.
I have a hashtag. No one's used it yet. I don't think. Judge loose cannon. Not bad, right?
Okay, bad. If you want to just keep avoiding this issue, that's fine.
Well, let me give you it's a little sore spot for me, and I'll tell you why. And this is actually right up your alley. It's about parenting. It's about kids. It's about alcohol, which is clearly up your alley. or today was one store removed from being up your alley. Jessie, my daughter, who's now 31, when she was about 25, she worked as a waitress in a restaurant. And the restaurant, it's not mandated by Georgia law, I don't think, but the restaurant's policy was you check every ID no matter what. I don't care if they look 90. And the reason that she was given for that rule was, although obviously if somebody looks 90, they can buy alcohol. If the rule is you ID everybody, then when the person comes in who might be 26, but might be 19, and drinking age 21, we want to take that discretion away from our employees so we don't get in trouble. Jessie thought that was the stupidest thing ever. Jessie's position was, if it's a close call, you ID them. Or even if it's a reasonable call, you ID them. But if someone comes in with a gray beard, obviously 70 years old, it's insulting and delaying to insult them. And the owner of the restaurant said, sorry, but you have to do that. And in fact, my daughter got fired from that restaurant for not IDing somebody who was about 50 years old. So she got fired. So it is kind of a sore spot with me. And what
a dumb reason to fire a person.
Well, I agree with that.
You've invested in this person, you've trained them. And I mean, yes. The point is that you're worried you're going to get sued, but you shouldn't be. It's ridiculous. Not sued,
but not sued, closed down. By the way, Pete, I've never told this story on your show, I don't think. Maybe I did, but I don't think so.
Is it about your wife when you proposed to her? She had a guinea pig in her shirt? Because you've told that on the show 100 times.
No, it is not that. I don't drink, as you know. I have some other sins, but I mean, I can drink something if it has all sugar in it and a little bit of alcohol.
I've had drinks with you.
No, you have not.
I had a glass of wine with you.
I have not had a glass of wine in 40 years. You're thinking of somebody else. Lynn will tell you. Red wine and white wine make my head just ache from the beginning, and it tastes like toxic gasoline to me, which actually is a marital issue. Lynn handles very well because I do like fine food, and we'll go on occasionally, once every now and then we go on vacation. It's rare, but occasionally we go on vacation. And when we do that and we go to a nice restaurant to spend some money, Lynn is like, what wine can I have with my meal?
Yeah.
And the waiter will go, well, here are the bottles. And then we'll go, I can't get a bottle. I can only get a glass or two because my husband doesn't drink wine. And the waiter goes, oh, well, you have like three choices. They all suck. And then Lynn looks at me and goes, what? But anyway, I closed the bar down when I was 17 years old. Do you want to hear the story or not?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Port Washington, New York. The bar was called Hogan's Pub. It was really popular. The drinking age was 18. That's how old I am. This is 1975. And I'm dating a 18-year-old, 17-year-old girl who has a 19-year-old male friend. And I wasn't hiding this from my parents. I was like, we're going out tonight to this bar. I may have one drink. I don't know. I don't drink, but I may try one because that's what they're going to do. And they knew where I was going. Like I wasn't hiding anything. Went to the bar. There were 300 people in the bar, at least. I sat in bar restaurants, I think. I sat in the way back in the corner. Pete, I was in the very back of the corner with my girlfriend who looked 20, 19 maybe, and her friend who easily looked 21. Drinking age was 18, though. I was 17. So I didn't know what to order because I really had not had drinks before, except I think I tried Boone's Farm when I was like 16. Anyway, so my friend said, get a tequila sunrise. And I said, what's that? He said, well, it's tequila with a whole bunch of sweet stuff in it. And I said, oh, that sounds good. Okay. So they brought over tequila sunrise, a beautiful drink, shades of orange, shades of red, kind of like the sunset picture I sent you earlier today.
Oh, yeah.
2 police officers come in the bar. They walk past everybody, and come straight to me and say, show us your ID.
What?
Yeah. I didn't have an ID. I didn't have a fake ID because I knew that was a bad idea. So my stupid friend, the 21-year-old, or 20, maybe he was 20 and a half, said, no, I bought that drink for him, which was the worst thing he could have said. We were both arrested. And we were taken to the Port Washington police station, which is like something you said of Andy Griffith. Mayberry RFD, for those, I don't know if that's a reference other people know, but, I get put in this conference room. My friend gets taken away, and I'm thinking my college aspirations are done. My friend's going to go to jail because he bought a drink for an underage kid. And we probably were arrested somewhere between 10:30 and 11. And I sat in that conference room alone until 1:30 in the morning.
Oh, that's so brutal.
At which point my father came in, smiling. Did you learn a lesson? Kind of thing. I was like, yeah, Dad, I did. My other friend, that turns out, got a warning and didn't get in trouble. But here's the best part of that story. 2 months later, my parents got a phone call from the police. We need to interview your son. It can be either at the police station or your house. He's not in trouble. It's not about him, but we do have to ask him some questions. My parents were like, come to the house. So they came to the house, and Pete, they had the drink. It was wrapped up in an airtight evidence bag. And by now, the tequila sunrise looked like, I want to say something terrible, but just imagine the worst combination of red, orange, yellow, and purple colors in the most disgusting image imaginable. And this was 5 times worse than that. And they said, were you at Hogan's Pub on this day and time? I said, yes. Did you buy this drink? I said, no. They said, why were you drinking this drink? Because my friend bought it for me. I tell the truth. I was, because I was signing an affidavit. Will you sign this affidavit attesting to all these things? I said, yes. Signed the affidavit. My parents were there, of course. And Pete, about 2 months later, that bar was closed. And I later learned that I was the third strike. There had been 2 strikes before that, and I was the third strike. All over, and I was only 1 year away. It was 18. I was 17. Drinking age was 18. But the thing is, when I was 17, I looked 14, and that was the problem. So I'm trying to muster up sympathy for the story that began this long obsessive story, but I'm just having trouble since
I couldn't get buy a 6-pack at the grocery store.
I want to have
not a very sympathetic friend, but that's neither here nor there.
I am a sympathetic friend.
You're not you're not even a good friend, apparently. So, but that's neither here nor there. This is a crazy story you just told me, and I want to ask you about. That's crazy that they kept the drink. Who dropped a dime on you? I bet you. This is what I think. I believe that it was because it's Long Island. It was that restaurant's competitor.
Well, one thing I did learn about Long Island, my parents moved away in 1979 when I was a junior in college.
Terrible place.
Yes,
terrible place.
I've always said, I probably shouldn't say this. I'm not going to say that, but
they're not good people. I'll say it.
No, I'm not commenting. I have no comment although I'll say this: I did not appreciate the beauty of Long Island while I was growing up there.
Well, we're not going to. Yeah, okay.
No one cares about that. Okay.
Well, it's beautiful. Yes, okay, but it's covered in terrible people.
I didn't know was that in my hometown of Port Washington, this may get me in trouble, at least in the years I lived there, and then 5 or 10 years after, there was a very strong mafia presence, both Italian and Jewish. Yeah. There was a serious Jewish mafia. And you had, and so my parents are friends with these other people who owned a little shop. They had to pay protection. It's such a thing. It's beyond my expertise. It's beyond my but they did. They told me, if they didn't pay protection, they would have gotten hurt. And stupid Long Island. What's that about?
Now I think they have also have Central American gangs out there now. Whatever it is. Forget the name of it. MI.
Right. So I grew up in a fairly privileged place. And what I would say is it wouldn't be a terrible thing if Long Island itself, which is a beautiful place, stayed the same, but we could just take all the people out and move new people in. People from Oklahoma, people from Georgia.
Oklahoma?
Well, I've been thinking about Oklahoma a lot.
MS-13 is what I was thinking of. So here, but just real quick, that story, before I move on, morally, ethically, where is the line with drinking and with the idea that law enforcement would spend any resources? Now I think the law is underage drinking like a court appearance, a ticket. They don't bring you if you get caught drinking underage. They don't bring you to jail.
No, I don't think minors get in trouble, but I do think bars and restaurants are closed down.
Yeah, but you got brought to jail.
Yes, true. Well, so Port Washington is literally 18 miles from New York City. It's 12 miles from Queens. Actually, I could ride my bike to Queens. That's how close it was to Queens. At the U.S. Open, Douglaston.
You used to have one of those bikes with the giant wheel in the front and a tiny wheel in the back. Is that right?
I had a Schwinn Varsity, my friend. A Schwinn Varsity. The old folks
out there. The banana seat?
There were 2. There were the Schwinn Varsity and the Schwinn Continental. And they were 10 speeds. And boy, when you got a 10 speed, you felt like you owned the damn world. Because there was no public transportation. There's no subways. There's no,
right.
The buses were awful. But what I was going to say, I have no freaking idea because I'm still thinking about Judge Loose Cannon in Florida.
You lived a few miles from New York City in Port Washington, and we were talking about drinking and how the laws have changed. Does that jog your memory?
No.
Damn it.
Sorry. I will say this. I mean, there is a great irony in this. I'm not kidding. Total seriousness for 1 minute.
Go ahead.
My whole life, I've tried to like alcohol because I admit I like the little bit of buzz. I don't like I've only been falling down drunk like twice, and that was because in law school I had no choice but to drink because I couldn't. But
I get that way on Thursdays.
Right.
That's when I hang out with listeners. I come on here, I have 2 beers and some whiskey, a little whiskey. And
I wish that I liked the taste of alcohol, but I just don't.
Weird.
No,
weird.
No, there is one that I like that I've never disclosed to you. I don't think. And I'm a little nervous to disclose this publicly.
Go ahead.
I'm trying to decide.
But because is the reason because it's not very manly or something?
Well, I think it'll be a thing you'll tease me about in the future.
Let's go.
And Lynn gets me this all the time because she wants me to have.
Come on.
I just freaking. I actually like it. I don't. I'm like. Actually, I really like it. But I've always liked Kahlua. That's not. I've always liked it. I used to get. In college, I did order brandy Alexanders.
Oh my God!
And my friends would look at me like,
it is bizarre to me. It really is. There's so many things. Almost everything about you screams, "I'm not heterosexual." It always has, but you are. You are, in fact.
I am heterosexual.
You really are, but I mean, you are a show tune loving.
No, but hey, okay, hold on, though. I know more about the NBA than 99% of America. So I can talk Sondheim.
No, you know what? You're right.
I can talk the NBA.
That's right. You have a lot of masculine qualities that you can talk.
I played football for a long time.
But you can't fix anything.
That's true. Isn't that kind of my upbringing, though, in a way? Anyway, what I was going to say was, this is what I do like to drink.
That was anti-Semitic, what you just said.
I know it was. I know. Maybe you should edit that out.
No, I'm not, because every single one of my Jewish friends, every one of them has a joke about how we don't do manual labor. We're not good at things. So they can all answer for it. Yes. Go ahead.
Fireball whiskey, which basically tastes like those fireballs you got as a kid. And that fireball taste overwhelms any alcohol taste.
Oh, yeah. So you know who loves that? Besides
me?
Someone that may or may not live in my home and may or may not be of legal drinking age.
I think Fireball whiskey is I was going to say, this is something a heterosexual would never say, but I'm saying anyway. That's how secure I am in my sexuality. It's the cat's meow. It's just
you are 3 shots of Fireball away from your first cock, and I want to be there because it's going to be mine. All right, we're getting carried away.
Oh man, I just want to say, for the record, for those listening to this, I hope the first thing you hear is actually this sentence: "We're starting now," and everything that came before this is gone.
No, there's no way. There's no way anything that we're about to talk about can follow the most amazing appearance you've ever had on the show. Oh, the cat's meow is the title of this one. Okay, here we go, folks. Eric Segall joins us. Right. It's Constitution Day.
Well, technically, Sunday is Constitution Day.
This is what I'm calling a weekend special with Eric Segall, because I'm going to drop it on Saturday.
Okay.
And so it's there for you all weekend long if you're listening pleasure. Okay. And so it's funny that you reached out to me and you're like, hey, man, it's Constitution Day Sunday. Do you want to? And I was like, I should just tell him he never needs a reason ever to come on the show. It's like, you just tell me what you want to talk about, and then I prepare for it.
But this is what happens. I mean, sometimes there are current events where you...
you could be like, hey, it's Left-Handers Day. Do you want to talk about the Constitution? And I'd be like, yes.
How about if I called you and said, it's National Cat Day, and I want to be able to use the expression?
Yes, I always want to talk to you. Your last appearance was such a big hit here when you talked about your loss. It was such... we could talk about anything. The only thing I don't love talking to you about is politics, because you're not great.
Well, I'm surprised you didn't... What do you mean I'm not great at politics?
No, you're better than I am, frankly. But I had
a dialogue with Monica Lewinsky today, a little bit.
Did she come back to you? I saw your tweet to her.
No, she hasn't. But I hasn't. She
responded to her tweet for legal with a legal Twitter question.
She asked law Twitter.
She didn't acknowledge your existence.
Not yet. Not yet. But no, actually, what I meant to say, though, about politics was you won't let me talk about Sarah Palin. That's the taboo subject on the show.
No, I won't let anybody talk conspiracy theory on this show. But I don't want to do that. There's plenty of other places for your crackpot theories. But listen, real quick on Monica Lewinsky. I saw your response to the death of Ken Starr this past week. Let's just real quick tell everybody who he was. But Monica Lewinsky's response was so classy. Did you see her response?
Yeah, I did. I remember reading it thinking, she's a great, I don't know if she's doing it or someone is doing it for her, but she is a great Twitterer.
I think she probably does it herself. She's a pretty clever.
Yeah, I know. I love her tweets. I think she's great. People don't know Ken Starr is the reason why we know about Monica Lewinsky, and it's not really a good reason. Yeah, he died on like 3 days. I had to talk about that. So it just turns out by coincidence. Last night I teach. The reason I'm not in your hangout, Pete, on Thursdays is I teach from 6 to 9, and you don't want me after that because I am just tired.
So drunk, apparently.
But just by coincidence, last night I was teaching Clinton versus this. I have a funny story for you. I was teaching Clinton versus Jones. This is a big Supreme Court case, and not involving Monica Lewinsky, but it's a big Supreme Court case where Paula Jones alleged that Bill Clinton, while he was governor of Arkansas, called Jones up to his room and made sexual advances towards her. She refused. And then she claimed later that her job suffered. She was Brookfield State of Arkansas, that her job suffered. Mm-hmm. And the case is important because the Clinton's lawyers argued that Paula Jones could sue him. These are acts before he was president. Presidents can never be sued in a civil court for any action they take while president, which is a totally different story we could talk about. But this was an act taken before he was president. And so Clinton's lawyers said, she can sue me, but she has to wait. She has to wait until my term is over because a lawsuit here would be so distracting and take up so much of my time that the American people, that would rob the American people of the best functioning president. The way I explain that to my class is, of course, going back to Star Trek, where the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, which was basically the message the Clinton lawyers said. I think the Clinton lawyers are probably right about that, but they lost. And the Supreme Court held that a sitting president can be sued for acts taken prior to office while he's president. Justice Scalia whispered to his colleagues during this oral argument, this guy plays golf. What do you mean he's too busy to defend a lawsuit? That really happened. But here's what I want to say. So my class is 75 people, and I call on people, or sometimes people volunteer. And back in, shortly after that case was decided, I would always say, is there a Republican in the room who's willing to self-identify as a Republican and give me the facts of this case? Because the facts are kind of lurid.
Oh, that's interesting that you did that in class. Is that weird?
And no, many people volunteered, but that was, a long time ago. Most of my students don't remember Ken Starr, Bill Clinton, or anything else about that, which is a whole different story. Most students at Harvard and Yale don't know a lot about Bill Clinton and Ken Starr and all that stuff. Yeah, right. So last night I said, is anyone in this room willing to give the facts of this case? And this very demure, short woman, I say that, she's probably 23 years old, in the back of the room, raised her hand and said, I'll do it, Professor Segall. And I said, great. And I said, do it any way you want. I don't want to embarrass you because the facts are kind of, lurid. Do whatever you want. And this is what she said in a room full of 75 people. She said, well, this was a case involving the state employee, Paula Jones, who was at a convention, and a state officer came up to her and said, the governor wants to see you and would like to go see him upstairs. She said, of course, because she works for the state and the governor wants to see her. And Paula Jones went up the stairs to Bill Clinton's hotel room, and he allegedly pulled out his penis and said, give me a blowjob.
That's how she told it.
Yes, that's how she told the story. And she said it in a very demure voice. And I guess it wasn't a funny story after all.
No, it is a funny story because I don't want to defend Bill Clinton at all.
Yeah, good.
But I bet you he was a little smoother than give me a blowjob, like ordering. He's a charismatic predator.
Yes.
That's not very charismatic.
It was just
He's
so funny.
More like, hey, how are you? Come on in, sit down. I'm just wondering if
First, you gotta play your penis.
Here's my dick. I mean, he's not Louis C.K. He's Bill Clinton. Anyway,
right.
Okay.
Sorry,
so Monica Lewinsky.
That was all distraction.
No, it's okay. She tweeted, Ken Starr died, and Monica Lewinsky tweeted, as I'm sure many can understand, my thoughts about Ken Starr bring up complicated feelings. But of more importance, is that I imagine it's a painful loss for those who love him. I was so moved.
That's much better than I did.
I was so moved by her compassion.
Let me tell you what I did
that I tweeted something terrible about Ken Starr.
Yeah. Well, no. So this is. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, the best one was Jeff Charlotte, but I have to find it. So you say what you said, and then I'll.
Okay. So there was a time in this world when Alan Dershowitz was a incredibly esteemed law professor and probably our country's leading expert on criminal law. And he also knew a lot about con law. He was a Harvard law professor. He was involved in the O.J. Simpson trial. Today, he's a nut and a fruitcake. But he was really smart and really well respected in the 2000s, and deservedly so. He is a smart man. He's just gone off the rails. Anyway, Justice William H. Rehnquist died in 2005, and Dershowitz wrote in the New York Times. It may have been the Washington Post, but I think it was the Times. Don't hold me to which paper it was. He wrote, "My mama taught me two things relevant to this. One, don't speak ill of the dead. Two, always be honest. Today I have a problem because I can't be both." And then he said, Justice William H. Rehnquist was a horrific person who was on the wrong side of every civil rights issue ever known to man. And in fact, in the when he was at Stanford in the early 1950s, he did in fact wear a Nazi uniform to some costume party and went across the stage doing the Nazi salute. It is true that Rehnquist was on the wrong side of every civil rights issue forever. So last night, I said to my class, I told that story about Dershowitz. And then
that was just Segall saying it is true that Rehnquist was on the wrong side, right?
No, Dershowitz said that.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were saying that you agreed that that's true.
I agree with Dershowitz, though.
Okay,
that's a true statement.
I thought so. Go ahead.
I'm paraphrasing him. But yeah. And so I said that to my class, and then I said, so I have a problem. We're teaching a case now that we're only teaching because of a guy named Ken Starr. And then I said, I worked for the law firm Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher. Ken Starr worked for the law firm Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher. In fact, I think at the time he was the youngest person ever to make partner at Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher. In addition, I have had several give and takes in person with Ken Starr at legal conferences. And then I said, so my mama always told me to not speak ill of the dead and tell the truth. And tonight I'm going to tell you the truth. He was just an awful human being.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's awful. Just awful. I mean,
I
really
didn't know
bad.
that he was an awful person until I learned about while he was president of Baylor University.
That's the ultimate irony. Go ahead.
Well, Jeff Charlotte tweeted. Jeff Charlotte is a writer who has written
he's
many.
Great.
You know, Jeff?
Great.
He's a great.
I know his work. He's great.
One of the kindest people I've ever met in my life. He's very, very nice. Jeff Charlotte writes, Ken Starr was a villain, not because he went after Clinton, a ripe target, even if not for the reasons Starr cared about, but because at every turn he supported the use of law and institutions to punish women for having bodies. He bought his hate by desecrating his Christ.
Wow. So if people don't know, Baylor had this horrific scandal involving certainly sexual harassment, but I think rape also. And I'm not positive about the rape part of that. I know there's all kinds of sexual terribleness. And he was the president of Baylor, or the chancellor. Sorry about that. He had a high position at Baylor, and he had to resign because of it. So the ultimate irony is he went after Bill Clinton with all of his righteous indignation. He was a man of faith, with all of his man of faith, and then he presided over really one of the worst sexual scandals in the history of American universities. But he was bad
at Baylor, where there was
at Baylor, just terrible.
Yeah, I don't know the details. I don't even want to read that article, the investigative reporting on it, much less learn about the cases.
And that's about all the time we should spend on Ken Starr because he's just a douche.
Let's talk about Judge Aileen Cannon. You have thoughts?
I do. But I need to give my bona fides first. If you have new listeners,
it's time for Segal's bona fides or bona fides if you're an elitist.
I worked at the Department of Justice from 1997 to 1991. And that was the first Bush administration, and that was during the Iran-Contra scandal. And during the Iran-Contra scandal, the independent prosecutor named Lawrence Walsh, who was a Republican, asked the Bush Justice Department to turn over all kinds of records and papers and tapes and documents, not from the Bush administration, but from the Reagan administration, where Bush was vice president, because there was controversy over the role that Vice President Bush played during Iran-Contra when Bush was actually president of the United States. So they asked for all these documents, and the Bush administration didn't give them those documents. At which point they turned around and they filed what is called a subpoena ducis tecum. That's Latin, which is basically come to this deposition with documents, turn over the documents, and the subpoena was served on the National Archives, saying you must turn over these documents, which were covered by the Presidential Recordings Act at the time.
What is the Presidential Recordings Act? Does that take a long time to explain?
No, it's a law that says that that the president's documents basically belong to the American people. And when a president leaves office, he turns over all of those documents. Now, of course, not in 1987, but now emails and all that stuff to the National Archives, who then has people to go through them to take out classified information if it's in there, to take out attorney-client information if it's in there, and to take out like personnel matters that shouldn't be that are not of a public nature.
And that's why Obama, when he was writing his memoirs, had to write a request. Can I have some of these documents? Right.
But that's misleading. He would get copies of the papers. He wouldn't get the original papers, is my understanding, because unless the archives decided themselves, this is a paper the American people don't ever get to see, or something like that. And we had that argument at our disposal at the time. We didn't make it for various reasons. The story I always tell about this is, so I'm just a lowly trial attorney. I don't know why, to this day, I don't know why I was picked to do this, but I was picked to represent the National Archives. And my marching orders were, get a compromise. We'll give them some of the documents and some of the boxes. We're not going to give them all the documents and all of the boxes, and just work it out the best way you can. We don't want to go to court. This is like 1989, 1990, and everybody knows Bush is running for president again, and they did not want to appear like they were stonewalling. So my job was to keep it out of court. That was my job. And we ended up working on a compromise, and we did that. They assigned to work with me a political appointee from the criminal division of the Justice Department, because obviously the Iran-Contra investigation had criminal implications. We didn't know each other at all, had never met. He was a Reagan appointee from 1982, but he stayed on during the Bush administration. So our first job was to go over to the National Archives and see the documents that the independent prosecutor wanted, to get a sense of the scale of those documents, to get a sense of what they were like. They're all in boxes, that kind of thing. So the archives is right across from the Department of Justice in Washington, literally across the street almost. So we went, and this is the first time we ever met. So we went together, and he didn't know who I was. All I know is he was appointed by Reagan. He was a head honcho. And we get to the National Archives. The public goes upstairs, but downstairs is all the hidden stuff and all the stuff that's not on display. And Pete, it's an amazing place, by the way. It's like Lincoln's horse's bridle and
is
Washington's
it open?
hat.
It's open to the public, right?
No, well, the public displays, but the basement part of it is not open to the public.
That you got to get it. They got to know somebody.
No, I mean, that's where they store the stuff, and they don't display everything all the time.
A bunch of boxes, right? And it looks like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
So we're walking through and it's fascinating stuff, like stuff from all prior presidents, all this stuff that really should be in a museum, a lot of it. The boxes were stored way in the back where the people were going through them for all the stuff I told you about earlier. There's a poster on the wall. This is 1989, I believe. There's a poster on the wall with Ronald Reagan and a monkey, I think, or a gorilla or something. Because Reagan did movies in the 40s, Bonzo movies, Bedtime with Bonzo, and other Bonzo movies. And okay, that's funny, but this is serious.
Yeah.
The political appointee turns to me. He has no idea what my politics are. He has no idea that I'm progressive. He has no idea of any of that. He looks at me and he goes, "See that poster?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "If I asked Ronnie what his lines were in that movie in 1951 or 48 or whatever it was, Ronnie would know every single line he had in that movie. But if I asked him about a major policy decision he made last year, he would have no fucking idea." It's exactly what he said.
And that was what year?
1989.
And so
it was before it became public that Reagan's Alzheimer's really started while he was in office. How scary is that?
Well,
anyway,
it's not that scary.
It's a little scary. It's a little scary.
I think.
But anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go to this judge. So This is what happened. This is the timeline. It's really important. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but this is more important than the original subject we were going to talk about. So the Department of Justice, the criminal division, gets a warrant from a magistrate, goes through all the correct procedures. The warrant is for these boxes of documents in Palm Beach, where Trump lives. And they do everything legally, and they take the boxes of evidence back with them to Washington. And then Trump files a lawsuit in Palm Beach, and where he has a pretty good idea he's going to get the judge he appointed, the federal judge he appointed. Not only did he appoint her late, but she was confirmed after Trump lost the election.
Right.
Which a lot of us thought shouldn't have happened to begin with. And he says, I want a special master, and I want you to stop the DOJ from using these documents in their criminal investigation because they contain irrelevant documents, attorney-client documents, and executive privilege documents. And when his lawyers filed that brief, Law Twitter, both sides of Law Twitter, were unanimous that, of course, she's going to deny the motion. This is the dumbest thing ever. This is not how it works.
Just real quick. That's an important point, and I've been thinking about it all week. And what you said is both sides of Law Twitter. And yes. I just want to be clear, like, I'm sure there were some lawyers somewhere, I'm sure there were plenty, that were saying this, defending it. But what my understanding is, the vast majority of conservative, liberal, and whatever experts, legal analysts, were all pretty much on the same page. And what you're saying is, did you not see anybody within any kind of world of respect that thought this was?
No, I did not.
Okay.
That doesn't mean they weren't there.
Right. No, I'm saying there were. Yeah, but a lot of people, let's be clear. You and I both know a lot of people like to get on TV. So they'll say whatever. And bookers, and I can tell you, bookers are looking.
Dershowitz, two of them, yeah.
Yeah, well, bookers are constantly looking for someone to say, hey, yes. Is there any way that, they read an article? Right. It's a whole game that people do. They post an article, a tweet, and then a booker books them, and then, there you go.
I don't know.
Meaning they don't really believe what they're saying. They're just trying to be popular. Right. That's, even if being popular means being a villain.
That obviously happens. Okay. Jonathan Turley is a great example.
Okay. There you go.
One time was a very...
Hold on. You're breaking up. Let's go again. And he's gone. He's dead. He died. Segall is dead. Folks, let me just wrap it up from you. What he was about to say is... No, I've lost him. Hold on. Let me press pause. I'll get Eric back, and we'll continue the conversation.
I don't know what happened.
Well, I don't know what happened either, but I've got you back, and I think you might have been talking for a while. Do you want me to bring you back to where you were, or do you know?
Yeah, I think I know where I am. I think I did not see any serious people I respect defending the idea that a former president who has no status, he's a private citizen, he has no official status. He gets some benefits like Secret Service detail and pension, but he is just like you and me.
Okay.
The idea that a former president can stop a criminal investigation by asserting that documents he took with him when he left office, that DOJ has a warrant to get back, and that he should never have taken to begin with, that he could stop a criminal investigation, was absurd, crazy, will never happen. And by the way, it's called executive privilege. It's not called executives' privileges. I dealt with executive privilege a lot. It only belongs to the current president, full stop. And it would be insane to allow a former president to exert executive privilege. You want to know why?
Why?
He's not the fucking executive.
I really fell for that. Shit.
It's not that hard. It's really not that hard.
I took it. You threw it out there, and I jumped on the hook, and you reeled us all in, you son of a bitch.
So this judge yesterday, this is Friday, Thursday, doubled down. And what she has done is she has said that although if there's national security implications, the Department of Justice can keep looking through these documents, but they cannot use these documents for criminal investigative purposes until a special master goes through them. And by the way, There is no scenario where a special master can make a finding of executive privilege because it's not a thing. He wouldn't know. Only the president can, or sometimes what happens is the head of an agency says to the president, we need to label these documents executive privilege. A special master can't do that. He doesn't know. It's an impossible thing for him to do. But the key thing is this Trump selected moron of a judge gave the special master until November 30th to finish. Now, she could have given him to October 30th to finish, which is still a whole month and 6 weeks. But no, she gave him to November 30th. Why did she do that, Pete? You know the answer to that question, right?
No, I don't. Actually, I'm not falling for this again.
It's after the election. It's after
the midterms.
The election. And the midterms, which may in fact determine this country for the next 20 years in some ways. So there's no legal basis for this. This is what happens if the police come to your house and they have probable cause, an assigned warrant to take stuff out of your house. Okay, when that happens, this is what your recourse is. This is what my recourse would be at trial. If we're indicted, arrested, and then sent to trial, we can make a motion to suppress that evidence. People are familiar with that from, Law and Order and stuff. And then the judge decides, was this evidence seized properly? Is it properly relevant to the case? And if the documents are not relevant to the case, then I can get them back. That's the recourse you and I have. To say that an ex-president or an ex-senator or an ex-governor or Tom Cruise or any other American has a right to stop the criminal investigation in its tracks is impossibly absurd. Now, people are going to say, but wait, isn't a former president different than Pete Dominick and Eric Segall? And the answer is, for some purposes, yes. You and I don't get security details. You and I don't get, I think former presidents get security briefings even sometimes, although I hope that's not happening with Trump. But what we don't get, Pete, is different rules about things like arresting us and evidence, because that puts us above the law, just like it puts Donald Trump, civilian, above the law. And so that all happened yesterday. That the first order was like a week ago, and then she doubled down yesterday.
When you say double down, just to be real quick, the Department of Justice...
DOJ responded to her order saying, are you crazy? They didn't say that.
Yeah, right.
They gave all the reasons why her order is absurd and ridiculous.
Right.
Now, she could have said, I'm going to appoint a special master to go through the documents, but, go ahead and continue your investigation. That's incredibly wrong. But that's at least, that's wrong, but it's not destructively wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Saying
Good,
now.
Well said. Yeah.
Listen to what she's doing. She's saying the United States Department of Justice is not allowed to carry on a criminal investigation based on documents that they legally seized pursuant to a valid warrant. Pete, that's insane. And they're going to appeal to the 11th Circuit, the Court of Appeals. The problem is the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, I think there are 11 active judges, of which I think 7 were appointed by Trump or something like that. In any event, Republicans have a clear majority in the Court of Appeals. And I got to tell you, if the Court of Appeals rules against the government, and then they file an emergency petition with the Supreme Court, which I think they will.
The DOJ would file that? Yeah.
The DOJ files it, but it's in the name of the administration. It's the United States government filing. It's not DOJ. It's the U.S. government.
Got it. But DOJ, that's their job. But
yes,
the point being, that would be the next step. They go to the Supreme Court.
And I got to tell you, if the Supreme Court ratifies this whole process, you know what's going to happen?
I think I do. I think I do know what's going to happen. I'm serious.
Tell me.
I think that it means that anybody who gets charged with a crime can get a special master,
that's never going to happen. That's the point. It's never going to happen again, Pete, because judges in America are very pro-prosecutor. Now, I will say that Biden's done a good job appointing some public defenders and stuff like that, people like that. But no, this is a one out, Pete. We have a valid warrant. We have evidence. And by the way, even though it's not even a logical thing to say the special master will find documents subject to executive privilege, We know there are 100 boxes, I believe, 100 documents that are classified. To the extent there are classified top secret documents there, or to the extent there are executive privilege documents there, which isn't even a correct sentence, then Trump's guilty. He can't. The president can't take with him classified documents.
Well, let me just ask you. Let me just add. Let's cut to the chase on this, which means the following question. A lot of people, including former now disgraced Attorney General and man who looks like he is the product of the mating of Fred Flintstone and a toad, Bill Barr, said...
By the way, Bill Barr was the attorney. Bill Barr, go ahead.
He was the Attorney General when you were at DOJ.
Like a minute, but go ahead.
He even said, basically, as have many people said, this whole thing is a sham. The special master is a sham, but it only will serve to gum up the works and delay it. Eventually, what is going to happen is what you just said, that the president of the United States will be indicted, former president, will be indicted for having these documents. There's no way around. There's no legal defense.
I cannot think of a valid reason.
The valid reason is he...
Well, hold on, let me finish my sentence. I can't think of a valid reason why any government official, including the president of the United States, when they leave the employment of the United States, can take with them classified documents.
But the one thing that a lot of rubes, and put myself in that category, if people are buying, I'm not buying this, but if it was my guy, I might buy it, is I'm president. I declassified them. I have that right. I declassified them. They're no longer classified. I took them.
Well, he has to prove that he won't be able to. Because you don't declassify. Well, I don't know if this has changed. I haven't done this research. When I was at the Department of Justice, there was, because I dealt a lot with executive privilege type documents, in various cases. There's a very formal procedure, Pete, for declassifying documents. No,
there isn't. I took a small wand and I waved it above the boxes and I said, "Now you are now declassified."
I would like to find any former attorney general, Republican or Democrat. But then again, we've been saying that about Trump from the beginning, right? I mean, he's been doing this kind of thing that's unprecedented and never been done before. Throughout his presidency, weren't there documents he threw in the toilet, for example? So
yes,
here's one thing that's true.
According to details Maggie Haberman held on to for her book, yes.
Yeah. And so the reason we have a Presidential Recordings Act is mostly because of President Nixon and stuff he wanted to do and the evil that he did. But the basic idea is that government documents are documents for the people, which does not mean the people get to see all the documents. We definitely have a need for attorney-client privilege. We have a need for executive privilege when it comes to sensitive foreign policy decisions and things like that. But nothing gets thrown out. It's not. I believe Nixon's people shredded documents. I think that's part of the whole Watergate scandal. No, not allowed. It's not a thing that is. And the Presidential Recording Act makes that really clear. Now, it is true. So this is not. So there's no confusion about this. I think a president is allowed to say after he leaves office, I need access to documents A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And then the National Archives would find a way to make them available.
It was fine. No, and that's not controversial.
But that's not this.
But why? The only obviously there's a fair question to ask. Why do you need them?
Yes.
But
yes. But yeah, for my memoirs is a good enough answer. But I believe I don't know the answer to this, but I'm pretty sure what happens is they are loaned to the former president for a limited period of time, or he looks at them in some kind of,
Yeah, but here's the thing, and I know nothing at all. The president, if it's for, what could be a reason other than for my memoirs? No matter what it is, if you said it's for my memoirs, then they would say, okay, well, you can have this and this. No, I want the documents that are currently top secret. I want to look at them, and they would say, for what? And eventually you would get to negotiation where you say, this is what I want to write, but I want to be accurate. And there would be almost no reason to give an ex-president top secret files. Right. And there would be all kinds of important and good questions for the current government to be like, why do you need them?
So let's talk about Iran-Contra for a minute.
Because I want to sell them. That's why.
Let's go back to Iran-Contra for a second, where I was personally involved. And I have to speak at a very high level of generality. I know your audience understands that.
Well, only because you have a high level of integrity and you don't want to go to jail.
I don't want to go to jail. That's for sure.
Not since you had a tequila sunrise. Do you want to end up in the pokey again, folks? That's called a callback. That wasn't
jail. That was a conference room.
All right.
They didn't put me.
You were detained.
I think my friend may have been detained in jail for a couple hours, but me, it was a conference room. But anyway, I looked 14. But anyway,
still do.
So the independent counsel says to President Bush, there are Ronald Reagan documents that we need to fulfill our responsibilities to engage in the criminal investigation of the Iran-Contra affair. Turn those documents over. And one of the things that we negotiated with the independent counsel was, well, the archives needs these documents under law. The law gives these documents to the National Archives. There is an exception for criminal investigations, but it's different. And so what we basically worked out was, tell me the documents you really need, the ones you really want. And I said, I'll do everything in my power to see if I can get them. And we negotiated it. And eventually I did what my bosses wanted me to do, which is I kept that part of the controversy out of federal court. And I think I did that in a way that was both my view of the Department of Justice, Pete, and a lot of people share this, and a lot of people don't. Some people think you work for the Department of Justice, your client is the United States government. My view is you work for the Department of Justice, your client is the people of the United States. And that was always my view. In fact, I believe I just read today that Obama said to his attorney general at some point, your job is not to represent me. Your job is to represent the people. And I felt very strongly about that. And I was involved in some high profile cases. And if they asked me to do something I thought was really not in the interest of the American people, I said no. And I said no twice. And both times we backed away from the case. So what should have happened here is if Trump wanted these documents, or if he thought he had properly declassified them in some way, then he goes to the National Archives and says, there are a subset of documents from my administration that I need for purposes A, B, and C. May I have them, please, for a limited period of time for limited use? And the archives would have said, all right, let's sit down, show me the documents. What do you want? And it wouldn't have been as adversarial as my situation where, there's a whole scandal going on. But that's how it would work. It is simply not a thing that the president takes government documents that are classified home with him. It's not thing.
It makes so much sense that he took documents. It makes so much sense. Of course he did. Yes. Of course he did.
So what a federal district court judge should have done here, and any district court judge with integrity would have done, is first of all, they would deny all the motions. Just point, and that's what everybody predicted, by the way. Everybody predicted
we're talking about Aileen Cannon. Any other judge in that role?
Well, I don't know. No, because there's some Trump judges in Florida who've done really crazy things in the last 3 years. And by the way, just last week, the Reed O'Connor, are not a Trump appointed judge, I don't think, but a Republican judge in Texas, once again is trying to overturn the Affordable Care Act or parts of it.
God,
he's been doing that for 7 years.
No.
Yeah. That's been, and actually it's a really important issue. I don't want to get into that right now. That's next week's conversation.
Okay. Oh boy.
But any judge should have denied all motions. This special master interfering is not a thing. We don't do that in criminal cases. It's not a thing. But anyway, deny the motion. And then what people were calling for was to ask Trump's lawyers why they shouldn't be basically held in contempt or penalized for violating Rule 11. There's a federal rule of civil procedure called Rule 11 or criminal procedure, both. I don't know. Here's the thing. When a lawyer puts their name on a brief in federal court, they are saying we have a reasonable basis in law and fact for this brief. And if they don't have a reasonable basis in law and fact, they can be sanctioned.
Which is maybe why Rudy Giuliani was sanctioned.
She should unequivocally have asked the lawyers to say, why shouldn't I sanction you for this frivolous, horrific, stupid motion?
Instead she granted it.
She granted it. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's almost beyond.
Do you agree
pale
with the following tweet from our friend Ellie Mistal? Y'all, media folks, still going to act like Trump Judge Cannon isn't a corrupt and biased individual? Are you going to join the rest of us in reality?
Yeah, corrupt. I can't say corrupt, but biased is obvious. Biased is obvious. Maybe corrupt, but certainly biased. But more importantly, incompetent. Only an incompetent judge issues these two orders. And here's the thing. All right, one more story about my life. I'm a law clerk in 1983, 84, 85 in the Northern District of Georgia, which is Atlanta. I'm working for a very conservative Southern judge who had ran for Senate in Georgia in 1969 and lost. Back then, only Democrats got elected from the South. Ronald Reagan. So
that was the old Democratic Party.
Fidel Castro opened his jail cells and basically sent a bunch of Cubans to America. They were called the Mariel Cubans. And they landed in Florida, and what can you do with them? So they were many of them were put in jail in the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. And then the ACLU got involved and all that stuff. And Reagan made a deal with Castro to send them back to Cuba. And their lawyers said, no, you can't do that for reasons A, B, C, and D involving very complex immigration laws. The judge I worked for was a conservative Republican, but the Reagan lawyers who appeared in the courtroom, their position was, we can do whatever we want, whenever we want, however we want, and there's nothing you can do about it. This is foreign policy. This is negotiations between the president and Fidel Castro. You have no jurisdiction. Stop. Get out of our way. We're sending them back whenever we want to. And my judge was so offended by that posture and the human rights violations that were going to accompany it that he actually said to me, Eric, write up an order enjoining the plane. And
what does that mean? Enjoining the plane?
In other words, issue an order saying that Reagan cannot send them back. Put an injunction on the federal government saying you are not allowed to send these Cubans back to Cuba.
Jesus.
And I said yes. And I said, and I don't mind. He's passed away. I'm not giving away any. As a general proposition, I said, Judge, we have no legal basis for this. Ronald Reagan can clearly do this under the immigration laws. It's just not even close. And he said, but they're saying they can do it for any and all reasons without any judicial review whatsoever. And I said, well, they probably can. And he said, I don't care. I'm not going to be responsible for them. You go ahead and issue the order. I said, are you sure? He said, yes. We issued the order. It was immediately appealed to the 11th Circuit, and the 11th Circuit immediately reversed it.
Wow.
And a week and a half, there's a point in the story. A week and a half or 2 weeks later, the first Cubans went back. And then there was another time, but there were still more Cubans in the prison. And so the government was going to do it again, like 2 or 3 weeks after that. They came into court, exact same arguments, exact same everything. Go back in the chambers, the judge says, I want you to stop the plane. I said, Your Honor, the 11th Circuit reversed you 3 weeks ago.
Stop the plane?
This. Yeah. Issue an injunction saying the president is not allowed to put them on a plane and send them back to Cuba. That's what we did the first time. And I said, Your Honor, we were just reversed in like 6 hours by the 11th Circuit. And you're going to be reversed again. And my judge said, I don't care. This is not right. It's not that they can't be sent back to Cuba. It's that there has to be reasons. And the government's unwillingness to give reasons is wrong. Write the order. And I said, all right, but you're going to get in trouble. He said, I don't care. This is one of the only benefits of life tenure. Anyway, I wrote the order, joined the plane, put an injunction on the plane, and the 11th Circuit reversed again immediately, like 2 hours this time. And Judge Vance, who was killed by a bomb in his house shortly after this, Judge Vance of the 11th Circuit wrote an order saying, if Judge Moy, that was my judge, does this a third time, we're going to remove him from these cases, which was, by the way, a fair thing for the 11th Circuit to say, because twice he had done it, twice he'd been reversed. If he did it again, they should have taken it away. But here's the point. I have to concede that those orders that my judge ordered me to write and he signed were contrary to law. They were. But there was something of deep importance, a principle that he thought, conservative Republican judge, was deeply important, which is when a federal government is called into court with lawyers, and that case was, I think, the ACLU, they have to give reasons. It's not enough to say, Sorry, Your Honor, we owe you nothing. We can do whatever we want, whenever we want, however we want, get out of our way. We can debate whether my judge should have done that or not. But that principle was so important to him that he was willing to be really humiliated twice by the 11th Circuit. There's no similar principle at stake here. In other words, had DOJ agents in the middle of the night slipped, into Trump's house and stole the documents, okay, that's a different situation. But what we had, that's not according to the rule of law. That would be bad. I would be not in favor of that. That's not what happened here. Everything here was by the book. It was all by the book. So she's stopping a criminal investigation of a civilian. This doesn't happen, Pete. It just doesn't.
A civilian who is the former president of the United States.
Doesn't matter. He's still a civilian. Pete, he has no more legal protections in court than you and I have. He doesn't. He's a civilian. That's what he is. And it's a horrible look for America. Now, this is one rogue. This is the final point. This is one rogue Trump-appointed nut. I don't know how the 11th Circuit affirms it, but if they do, now you have a Court of Appeals decision affirming it. But I'm sure DOJ will appeal that to the Supreme Court. And then if we get a Supreme Court decision affirming this, then this is what we know. Then Ellie is right. Then we know what we have. In all the time you've known me,
You've never insinuated someone was corrupt, a judge.
I have never said the Supreme Court is corrupt.
Yeah,
never in my
never said that.
Now Justice Thomas has. I've said Justice Thomas has bordered on corruption by not giving the government his wife's tax returns as required by law because she was paid by the Heritage Society, who was trying to stop Obamacare.
Heritage Foundation. Yeah.
But as an institution, I have never called the Supreme Court corrupt,
right.
And I've never called the Supreme Court justice corrupt, other than Justice Thomas is flirting with that word. If they affirm this, then we know it's corrupt. We know that all they want is for Donald Trump to become president of the United States again, or they want to protect their friend or whatever, because there is no legal basis for this.
Right. Now, there is no legal basis.
Now, judges do this sometimes, like my judge did this, and the reason I told that long story is there really was no legal basis, Pete. But his position was there's a deeply important principle involved here, and I can't be responsible for those Mario Cubans were going to be killed and tortured. That was the problem.
Oh,
we knew
Cuba.
if we sent them, we knew if we sent them back, they'd be killed, probably killed and tortured.
Oh, you didn't tell me that.
Certainly killed. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that. So it is his view. Well, but I mean, it's obvious that Castro put them on a boat and sent them away. If they come back, it's not going to be with open arms. And the principle was, I'm not sending people to their deaths unless the Department of Justice gives me some reasons.
Yeah, right. No, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
You did make that point. Give us a reason as to why you're doing this. Yeah.
Yes.
By the way, you know what else I learned when talking to you just now? And I just looked it up real quick while you're talking, because I could do two things at once, believe it or not.
You're great at that.
I'm the greatest podcast host in the history of it's this. When let me just read this real quick and see if you want to do anything with it, and remember where I interrupted you. When federal appeals judge Robert Vance opened the small brown parcel in the kitchen of his suburban Alabama home on December 16th, 1989, it exploded, killing him instantly and seriously injuring his wife. 2 days later, virtually the same scenario happened again. This time the victim was Atlanta attorney Robert Robertson. It wasn't over. 2 more bombs mysteriously appeared. The third, sent to the federal courthouse in Atlanta, was intercepted. A fourth was recovered after being mailed at a Jacksonville office of the NAACP. Through brave and careful work, ATF personnel defused the one bomb, and Florida police bomb experts the other. Anyway, they found the guy, Walter Leroy Moody, and that's all I know. Because I looked it up while we were talking. I didn't want that took about 10 seconds, but I was still listening to what you were saying.
The discussion of Judge Vance is hard for me because, first of all, a very good friend of mine clerked for him during the time I was clerking for my judge. So, and Judge Vance, the second time, spared no words. He was like, you can't do this. You're going to stop doing this. And if you do it again, we're going to remove you from the case.
His daughter-in-law is Joyce Vance, who people might know from her MSNBC appearances.
She is a law professor at the University of Alabama. That's kind of interesting you mentioned her because she's wonderful. She is absolutely fantastic. I wanted her on my podcast, and she said she has and I guess I didn't know this was a thing. She said that her deal with MSNBC is she can't appear on video anyplace else.
Yeah, some people have that deal.
Yeah.
Some people.
But everybody should follow her. She is a
But what about,
asset.
is there any relation to Sigh Vance?
I do not know. That's a whole different. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I don't think so, but I'm not. Maybe. Well, Sigh Vance is, of course, the son of
the former Secretary of State.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know.
I smoked a cigar with him on a balcony in Aspen.
Yes, yes, but okay.
It was John Meacham's cigar, but enough name dropping.
So we had. I want to end the serious part of this discussion.
Okay.
We're not going to talk about Constitution Day. Someday we should talk about
next
Constitution
week.
Day. Okay.
Yeah.
But I want to end this on a lighter, more frivolous note.
Great.
My wife, Lynn, who I love with all of my heart and soul.
Can we get her in here for this?
She's not home.
Oh.
My wife, Lynn, who I love with every fiber of my body.
I do too, which is weird. I'm just looking at a picture of her you posted. Just saying.
Is very, very, very much into watching a show called Yellowstone.
Oh, here we go. I know where you're getting at.
Now, I think it's a pretty good show.
Yeah.
I do not think it's a great show.
Okay.
She thinks it's a great show.
But you watch it with her anyway, which is nice.
Yeah, of course, because I'm that kind of husband. No, it's a good show. I recommend people. I mean, it's a very good show. But one of the reasons Lynn thinks the writing is great. I think it's pretty good. Lynn thinks the scenery is amazing, and I agree 100% with that. If you want to see beautiful Montana and beautiful mountains and beautiful pastures and all that, the cinematography, Pete, on the show is first rate. But the real reason Lynn loves this show has to do with you, because Lynn loves Kevin Costner. A, B, in this program, he's always in jeans, and for some reason, Lynn loves Kevin Costner in his jeans. And the reason you're involved is because you, in fact, have an in with Kevin Costner.
Do I?
Because I believe you do. I believe you have told the story publicly, or maybe you stop me at any moment when you used to go, or maybe you still go to the Aspen Festival.
Aspen Ideas Fest. Yeah, I think 7 times I was invited.
Kevin Costner has a house close to Aspen. And my understanding from previous conversations with you is you have been a guest at that house of Kevin Costner's. And can I finish the story or not?
Yeah, I've told people this story.
Okay. And you have even told me that you're so comfortable with Kevin Costner that one day you were coming out of the kitchen or something, and he and Val, your wife, were in the front yard or down the hill or something, and they were having a screaming, terrible fight about yoga. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, that's right. Well, screaming or terrible is a little hyperbolic.
Okay.
It was unpleasant. He was he was unpleasant, and she was unpleasant.
So
yeah.
So I think.
Do you want to know what that is in 30 seconds?
I want to make a request first.
Okay.
So what I want, and would make me a very I'm not sure how to phrase this. What Lynn would really love is an invitation to Kevin Costner's house, and I think you should get that for her, given all the time we have spent. Nope, not going to happen.
Not close enough with me.
Rat.
Yep.
Can you get closer?
No, Lynn isn't.
Oh, I think you're just jealous. That's what I think.
Jealous
I think
of
that's
what?
what you're saying. That Lynn likes Kevin Costner. I think that's what's going on.
Well, no. I think she's using me to get to my friend Kev.
100%.
She's using me to get to my friend Kev.
Yes.
I call him Kev.
100%.
Kevy.
The stronger relationship you have with him,
you're giving me
the madder she's going to be.
You're giving me the opportunity just to real quick just say
yes
that I spent the entire day at his home.
You told me that. Yes.
And I need to write it up.
Yes.
He taught me to fly fish.
Wow.
He has a baseball field at his ranch.
Then read that, then Googled that and found that out.
And we got and his boys at that point were maybe 7 and 9.
Yeah.
And me, him, and his boys played for a while where, I pitched I hit. Yeah. I shagged flies.
By the way, Pete, the young people in your audience may not know that Kevin Costner was in Field of Dreams.
I don't have any young people in my audience.
Okay.
And so I played baseball with him. I pitched to him. He pitched to me.
So why can't you invite us over?
And then he and my wife got in a fist fight. No, we went to, he then like showed us around the rest of his property, which is this huge ranch. It's a ranch.
Yes, they Googled that and found that
which is, it's got the river running through it.
Yes.
And he has a pond.
Maybe even Robert Redford, did he die?
No, Robert Redford is alive.
Okay.
Yeah. You're thinking of Paul Newman. And so it was an amazing day for me, but the disappointment will always be with my wife, who thought she'd spent the day with Kevin Bacon. She knows so little that she literally told some of her friends, we went to Kevin Bacon's house. And I was like, we didn't. I don't know Kevin Bacon. I do know Kevin Costner.
I watched Kevin Bacon when I was in 5th grade, and he was on the guiding light.
All right, enough about Kevin Bacon. So anyway, it was an amazing, fun day, but Val was frustrated because we were there all day and he didn't offer us anything to eat. But I mean, we were on a ranch and it was an impromptu kind of visit. I just texted him. I was like, dude, I'm in Aspen. He's like, come over. He gave me the key code to his place, and I got a cab and we went over.
I don't understand why this is so hard.
So he said to Val, so he gives us a tour, and Val says, "Oh, I didn't know you had paddle boards here," because we'd been there all day, and she was kind of sitting on the sidelines all day, and he goes, he just like gets triggered. He goes, "It's not my fault you were bored." And then she's like, "Who said I was bored?" And it got weird. It was it was the most surreal moment.
You guys told me that, yeah.
In my entire lifetime. I was like, "Can you not argue with my friend Kevin Costner, please?" But to be fair, she was right. She wasn't like trying to be a dick. She was like, I would have. He took it wrong. Anyway,
there's got to be a way. I'm going to crowdsource this. You're following. Yeah. I want everybody listening to this podcast and every other podcast. By the way, I found out your podcast. I don't even know if you know this. You probably do. Is in the 0.5% of all podcasts in the world.
0.5.
0.5.
Least listened to.
No, most listened. 0.5.
Is that right? Where do you find that information out?
So there was I saw some website. I came across some website by accident that ranked podcasts.
Yeah.
And 0.5% is pretty darn good.
Do you know why it's so good?
Because you're so good?
No, because the guests are so good.
Oh, well, I think since you're in the top 5.5% of all podcasts, the first thing you do after we hang up, I know it's Friday, is you text Kevin Costner and say, "Will you come on my podcast?" That's the first thing you do. And if he says no, you say, "Fuck you, come on my podcast." And then when he comes on your podcast, which would then make you top 1% of all podcasts in the world, at the end of that, you say, Kev, you're Yellowstone, which is still going on.
There's just no chance. I will never introduce your wife to Kevin Costner.
Please.
No. I'll do almost anything else for her. She'll embarrass me, first of all.
She will not.
Yes, she will. She'll be like,
context, yes, she might. Yes, she might. Yes, she might.
She will.
Yeah.
As my wife did.
I have the hook. No, I have the hook.
Yeah.
He lives on a ranch.
Yeah.
This is going full circle, Pete. Yep. This is great. This is the first sentence you uttered on this podcast, if it stays in as the first sentence. Kevin Costner, both in Yellowstone, plays this fictional rancher type guy who loves animals. He obviously is kind of like that because he lives on a ranch and loves animals. Mm. And who loves animals more than my wife?
Plenty of people, probably.
No,
yes,
that's not
I'll
true.
tell you why.
How many people do you know have 20 guinea pigs in their house
I'll tell you, you know who loves animals more than your wife?
Who?
Millions and millions of people who do not eat them. Your wife eats them. So stop it. Stop it.
Okay.
Listen, first of all, you're a thoughtful husband. If Lynn wants to meet Kevy, as I call him, she has to call me and ask.
Deal.
This is not going to cut it.
Can we do that on air?
Yeah, of course.
That's going to happen.
If you would have let me finish. And also, it has to be done on air. Yeah, no, this is a funny bit, and I cannot wait to deny her to her face.
No, you can't do that.
Or we can work something out.
Am I privy to those negotiations?
Not just between Lynn and I.
Can I steal the documents in the middle of the night? Can I get him pursuant to a lawful warrant and then have you take them back from me in a way that no human being has ever been allowed to do?
Well, Lynn is going to find out what my safety word is, and it's special master. So it's all coming full circle.
I can't top that. Thank you, my friend.
Eric Segall, everybody.
All right, well, there you go, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. A little over an hour conversation. It was great to be with you on the weekend or whenever you listen to our chat. And thank you very much to Eric Segall, my good friend, for giving me so much of his time. It's always so enjoyable, and I'm very grateful to have him and you in my life. Hey, if you haven't signed up for a paid subscription yet, please do go to standupwithpete.com right now and do that also. Go like and subscribe to the YouTube page, youtube.com/standupwithpete. And if you want to be a part of our street team, volunteer, work with us, network, to get your stuff promoted by me. If there's a way we could work something out, join the street team. The street team. A bunch of listeners working together to help promote the show and hang out. It's fun and cool way to meet people and a great way to grow the show. Check us out, standupwithpete@gmail.com. All right, that's the weekend special. I hope you liked it. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I hope you're doing well, staying in the present, being mindful of the moment, and watching football, if that's your thing. Or doing whatever your thing is. My thing this weekend has been to build shelves in the garage. So I'm going to go finish them, and then I'll post my accomplishments on social media. Because my own satisfaction about such a project is just not enough.